Wow. What a great video. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Department of Education. This is your Department of Education. So glad you're here. Thank you. Raise your hand if you were at the White House yesterday. All right, how was the pizza? How was the First Lady? That was pretty cool, wasn't it? Listen, I told you I'd have you here today, and we don't have the chandeliers we have over there, but we have you, and we're excited about this next section of the day. We have a great day planned here. Thank you to all the organizers that contributed, the sponsors, and the team here at the Department of Education. And I'm really, really honored to be here with my friend and colleague, Xavier Becerra, Secretary of Health and Human Services. Thank you for being here. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you for being here, but also, more importantly, for the work you're doing to provide access to health care. And I can tell you, when I first came here about almost 3 years ago, I counted so much on Secretary Becerra and his team as we were reopening schools. They were helping us, making sure that we're doing it safely. So thank you for what you've done to not only help the Department of Education, more importantly, help the students safely get back into school, and just the work you're doing around healthcare. So thank you, Xavier Becerra.
Thank you.
And I want to also say thank you to Cherie and Aryanna, our youth leaders here, our panelists. They're going to be asking questions. Let's give them a round of applause. The Department of Education is always better when we have youth in the building, engaging, and they're going to have an opportunity to answer some questions and ask some questions too. That video to me just really, it resonates because, like I said last night, you know, youth have always had a voice, but sometimes our systems are not designed to listen. And we have to do more than just listen. We have to act. It can't be a one-shot deal. It can't be an event. It has to be a partnership. So I'm excited not only about what we're going to hear today, what we're going to discuss, but just as important, what's going to happen when the cameras are off and the live stream is off? How are we going to continue to work together to address and make sure that we're focusing on those issues that are important to you? The things that were brought up in that video are really important, and we hope we have an opportunity to discuss that today, but also partner with you to make sure that we're moving the needle across the country. You all have a passion that you bring to the table here today, and we look forward to getting that and to working together to make it a reality. So thank you for being here, and I want to turn it over now to my colleague, Xavier. What are your thoughts of the video?
So, Secretary Cardona, first, a real pleasure to be here with you because we all have been through this. In fact, hearing some of the comments, I wanted to have mentors. I wanted to have people I could connect with and have an idea of what was next. I'm the first in my family to get a chance to go to college. So I didn't know how to do the process. I didn't know I had to get ready for what was then the PSAT and then get ready for the SAT and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know how many schools to apply to, and it would have been nice to feel comfortable knowing who to go to. And then the other part that I heard a lot was, I have a voice. I can be heard, and you may not agree with everything I say, but I have a voice. Give me a chance. And who doesn't feel like once you're going to be asked to do all these things, you know, at 18, some folks are signing up for the military. If you can do that, why can't you speak and have a voice in community affairs? And I think that transcends generations. And it's good to see that young folks today, actually I think more today than when I was younger, the activism that you see, the knowledge of some of the issues. I mean, for you, environment, it's, of course you got to take care of the globe and the earth and the environment. My time, we didn't even think about that. And so it's interesting to see how things have evolved. As much as some things change, sometimes they stay the same. So it's good to see that there is a thread that always runs through all the generations, but sometimes you all know how to do it better than we would have done it.
Absolutely. Well said. There hasn't been a movement in this country that hasn't been led by our youth, right? Cherie, how did that video resonate with you? Like, what were your thoughts when you saw that video?
Yeah, so when seeing the video and hearing other youth from around the country talk about their experience with gun violence, it just resonated with me because I grew up in the city of Evanston and Chicago. And for me, I was learning how to read while also learning about gun violence at the same age. So hearing other youth that are in completely different neighborhoods, states in the country also share how just pungent and prudent that like gun violence is in their community, even though we're not even near states and communities, that really resonates with me, and it just shows that gun violence is an unresolved issue in our country. So it really resonated with me.
Certainly is. There's so much more to do there, and some of the youth in the video talked about that. How about for you, Aryanna?
Yeah, so for me, I think a lot of what the youth were saying was that they wanted more opportunities. They wanted the opportunity to be able to go to school and it be affordable. They wanted to be able to make minimum wage, to have a decent living so that way they can survive in this economy.
Thank you for that. So those are some of the issues too, opportunities, right? And hopefully we get a chance to talk about some of the things that we're doing, but also what we could do that's important to you to make sure that we're hitting the mark. One of the things that was brought up in that video that has been a theme when I visited different schools across the country is access to mental health supports. That, especially post-pandemic, making sure that students have access to mental health supports was critical as we kind of reimagine our schools and universities. What have you seen at the university level or in communities that either gives you hope around access to mental health supports or a challenge that you think we should be thinking about as we try to improve, or as one young man said there, evolve our country? Either one of you, but
So for me, I feel one of the things I feel, especially during reporting and interviewing young people during the pandemic about what they were dealing with their mental health, was I found that we found a big community in social media, especially in a time where we were kind of isolated. So I feel with social media, you might be able to be scrolling on TikTok and you see someone who might have the same mental health situation that you're going through. So you kind of don't feel alone. You're able to build a community, even though it's someone you may have never met. And I think through doing that, it helped to kind of like break down certain stigmas. However, there's still a lot of resources and a lot of work to be done, but I do just feel that we, as Gen Zers and young people, we're making our communities in different ways. So now that we're able to communicate and, network or meet other people online, so we don't feel as alone, but we still need those resources to help back us up.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you, Aryanna. And
feel free to clap if you like that answer. That was a good answer.
100%. And I think also youth, there's no doubt, the youth and all of you here are facing things that no one our age should have to face. And with that comes attacks on our mental health. So things that I've seen that have given me hope in my community are like affinity circles and meeting the students where they are. Students are seeing so many tragic events happen in their community and around the world and still have to come to school every day. Right. So seeing things like affinity circles, also social media, there's a lot of resources that students have no clue about. So I think using social media as a tool to spread awareness is so important in this day and age, but meeting students where they are and creating those safe spaces for them to vent.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Both of you mentioned already twice the use of social media to bring people together. We need to stop acting as if there are no benefits to it. I think sometimes in some circles, when we say meet the students where they are, if they're using social media as a platform, while we have to protect them from the risks of it, we also have to recognize that's the currency of communication. If we miss that, we're missing an opportunity to communicate with them. And you believe that mental health supports, we could either link to them that way or use you said affinity circles, but I bet you what you're referring to online are affinity circles, people that connect with one another too, right?
Yes.
So maybe being more strategic about how we use that as a benefit?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So I have a question for you. I want to know what more could schools do to help with students, young people in school? What could they do more to help with mental health and their mental well-being?
Thank you. One of the things that I felt strongly about is, our schools were disrupted already, right? The pandemic did that. We'd be failing our students if we built our schools back the way they were in 2019. They're not meeting the needs of all of our kids. And in one of those areas that I feel like we have an opportunity to do that is in mental health support access. The whole continuum, right? That means every student is connected to something, whether it's a co-curricular activity, the arts, athletics, clubs, something that connects them, a sense of belonging, right? But also increasing our access to mental health supports within the building. Students are 6 times more likely to access mental health support if it's provided in a school building. 6 times. So what we need to do is make sure that we're connecting our community-based organizations to our schools. We have to work as a hub of the community to provide mental health supports. Where possible, make connections to family needs, because if we want to help students, we have to address some of the family needs. So partnerships with community-based organizations, and then taking advantage of some of the things that the Biden-Harris administration is offering. Like Xavier and I were told by the president, remember that meeting, that cabinet meeting, he said, I want you guys to make the Medicaid reimbursement process simpler. Remember that? And that process is underway now. We have 13 states where students who are getting behavioral health or mental health support that are Medicaid eligible, those states are getting reimbursement through Medicaid. So let's take advantage of that and make sure that all students have access to mental health supports. You know, there have been billions of dollars given to states, not only on mental health, but on safer school climates. Because let's face it, you know, a lot of the anxiety that students have and a lot of the concerns, especially the students that I've spoken to, have to do with safety. Emotional safety, physical safety. So I think they go hand in hand, but the bottom line is we cannot have the same mindset we had in 2019. You know, the emergency room model of mental health in our school. We wait for trauma to happen, then we treat it. We need to be more proactive. Tier 1 supports for all students, connections with adults, connections with affinity groups, and making sure that we're connecting with community-based organizations. That's what I think we should be doing.
Thank you.
Secretary, let me ask a question, if I may, both Cherie and Aryanna, because obviously you two are already into communication. You are already through YR Media getting out there and sending messages, this video, all of these things that help you communicate with not just your peers, but a lot of folks. In my days, it would have been impossible for most of us to do something like this because the technology wasn't there. So communicating was much more difficult. You really had a smaller group of people that you related to and you relied on. You all now can communicate around the world instantaneously, and you can make a big difference. So what got you into this? What are you learning? And honestly, what kind of media connects best with youth? Because I will tell you, as we were trying to get Americans, whatever age, whatever stripe, to get vaccinated when COVID was hitting really hard, we were trying to figure out how to get to the different communities, whether it was young folks, whether it was Black or Latinos, or whether it was older Americans, rural Americans. It's a different world now to try to connect. How do you connect, and what has YR Media done for you to help you connect?
So one of the amazing things about YR Media is that they're a media platform. So if you want to do a podcast, you can do a podcast. If you want to make a video, you can make a video. If you want to write an article, you can do that. So you're allowed to kind of like help to reach out to the youth in different mediums. And I think the great thing as well is that they provide paid opportunities to youth, not only where they're based in Chicago and Oakland, but also like around the country, especially in underrepresented areas. So I feel like having that platform to be able to connect with not only students from or youth from around the country, where I'm able to read their work and see what they're doing. And, you know, if I'm based in Maryland, I'm able to read, you know, someone's article or listen to someone's podcast who's based in Chicago. So I think that has really helped to be able to not only make me well-rounded, but also just be able to connect and reach other people.
Definitely a clap for that. I absolutely love YR Media exactly for the reasons you just said, but also it's connecting a network of activists and journalists and youth leaders around the country and allowing us to share our stories and also the stories that we want to see around the world. With YR Media, I specifically cover things emerging in like the political and the legal field, which is amazing because I'm able to write these stories for people who are like 14 to 24, and I'm able to break down things that are often kind of confusing and break it down in a way that youth can digest so they can be involved. But also with YR Media, I also cover stories of youth leadership and youth entrepreneurship. I know Aryanna does a lot of the same work too. And I'm looking forward to cover a lot of the leaders in this room because what you are doing is so inspiring. But to your question, I think in order to reach different citizens around America, we have to use a for us, by us approach. I think America is becoming more diverse than it used to be, and it needs to be reflected in every tool of communication that we use. So we have been talking about social media, but a good approach that YR Media does is, even for me, the issues that I've seen growing up, I'm able to then tackle it and talk about it, but I'm also able to talk about it from a different perspective, and I'm able to offer representation to people who often don't get that representation. So I think even with whether it's a COVID or like a vaccination campaign, it needs to showcase the people that you are trying to help. I think it's 2024 and we have to leave behind the monolithic kind of campaigns and representations that we use. So just the for us, by us approach, I mean, this is a great example, bringing the youth and having them speak about what they want to see. And I actually do have a question for you, Secretary Cardona. I love education policy, and like many activists in this room, we're really passionate about education policy. And there's even a survey that came out actually by the Wallop Foundation, and they found that a fourth of the teenagers in America, when they did a survey, they found that only a fourth of them felt that their schools were adequately preparing them for their future. That statistic broke my heart, but it also goes to show that a lot of students are not content with what they're seeing in their schools. And even this morning, I had a conversation about the problems with charter schools, the problems with public schools. And I think this shows a large divide between the youth and also the leaders in these places of power in these departments. And I was wondering if, I've been envisioning this for a while, but like a youth task force for education. We just passed one for climate. But I was thinking that this youth task force could be so helpful because there's a lot of students in different districts. And my district that I grew up in is nothing like the districts other youth grew up in. So I was wondering maybe, I mean, I'm sure you're better at this, but if we drew it up by congressional districts perhaps, and the students got to work with their representatives directly to inform them about what's happening in their school and in their district, I think that would kind of change the world when it comes to education because the youth are telling them what's happening in their schools. But I would just love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yes. That's a quick one. Yes. Only if you can help me with it.
Of course.
All right. So you're absolutely right. I said before, you know, youth voice has been there. And I mean, you're great examples. And everyone in this room is a great example of youth using their voice to improve the conditions in their communities. But having it be connected, I think, is critically important. And I love what you said, you know, it has to be done with you, right? Not to you. And I think sometimes our systems are designed where things are done to students or someone who's saying this is what students are feeling without the voice of students or in the room. So let's work together to make that happen. I think the time is now. It's very clear that the issues are important, and it shouldn't just be in D.C. I think at the state and local level, we need to increase youth voice as well to make sure that changes are being made at all levels. So 100% committed to that. I want to make sure it happens. And I totally agree that our youth need to be helping drive the evolution of our schools. You know, right after the pandemic, I said before, the disruption gave us an opportunity to reimagine what it's like. We ended up going back to the same system in many places, not all places, but in many places we ended up going back to the same system that was designed 2 pandemics ago. People facing forward for 6 hours in rows when we know experiential learning, internships, dual enrollment opportunities make students more excited about learning. You know, we launched this program called Unlocking Career Success. Check it out. It basically is taking advantage of the opportunities that the youth have today that they didn't have when I was going to school. There are millions of high-skill, high-paying careers that are going to be available, but our schools have to evolve to open the doors to that. I want the youth voice connected to that movement. I want to make sure that, you know, as we're coming up with policies here at the federal level, the bottom-up approach, in my opinion, is stronger, and it'll make movement. So let's work together. That task force sounds amazing. Let's identify some issues, and let's work together to get them done. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you as well. So when I was in high school looking to apply for college, I wanted to find a higher education, a great education, along with a cultural experience. So I decided to go to an HBCU. Thank you. In 2022, I graduated from Clark Atlanta University, and I'm now at Morgan State University getting my master's.
Awesome.
Thank you. So student loan debt is a major issue, especially going to an HBCU,
Right.
sometimes lack of resources, things of that nature. So I would love to know, what can we do to help with this issue so that way other students like me and other students who are dealing with this issue can live a life like the students in the video kind of talked about wanting to do.
Thank you for that question, and congratulations on your success, and acknowledging the tremendous contribution that HBCUs have in this country is something that I'm always proud of. So thank you for that. Look, to be very frank, the system, higher education system, is broken, and we're fixing it. The president made it very clear when he hired me. He said, I need somebody that has gone through the system and understands how it works. I'm an educator by trade. Like Xavier, I'm a first-generation college student. All right. When I was 17, I was so intimidated by FAFSA that I didn't fill it out. Yet, looking back, I was eligible. I just didn't want to do that to my parents. I didn't know what to do. So that's one of the things. That system hasn't been touched in over 40 years. And it's hard to change it, but we're changing it. Now it's going to take 15 minutes. There's 600,000 more students that are going to have doors open to higher education because of that. Not to mention the president's push to get another $900. So the maximum Pell Award now is over $7,300 for students. That's one way we're fixing the broken system, providing more aid, federal aid to students. Another way is providing debt relief where it's needed. The president has been so aggressive around debt forgiveness, okay? So far, over $137 billion has been provided in debt relief, and that's with the Supreme Court shutting down his biggest plan. Still, $137 billion, and we're not slowing down. Like, public service loan forgiveness is one of those things that we're doing. If you're a public servant, you want to be an educator, you want to be a nurse, you want to serve in the military, after 10 years of service and loan payments, your debt should be forgiven. You know, we called them essential 3 years ago. We can't forget about them now. So these are some of the things that we're doing to make sure that we're providing access to higher education for first-gen students and for other students. You shouldn't have to be born rich to access higher education. The president always says it. It should be based on your willingness to do it and your aptitude to do it, not on how you were born into wealth or not. We're fighting for that. As a first-gen myself, it's really important to me that we open the doors. Imagine the potential of this country if our colleges could represent the beautiful diversity of our country. That's our mission. So in addition to going after colleges that are taking advantage of students and you know, going after them and making sure that we discharge those loans, making sure there's a good return on investment in colleges, and making sure that our colleges are preparing students for the careers of today and tomorrow, too. I think that's critically important, but we're working on that, and we'd love that to be one of the issues that we can work together on with this new task force. Good? All right.
Love that. Thank you. So for Secretary Becerra, I would love to know, as you being the first Latino to hold your position.
Yeah.
Great. What advice do you have for youth and people of color who want to get in a position as well to help lead their communities, whether it be through housing or health?
Aryanna, probably the first thing I'd say is, don't think you have to know it all at the beginning. I would consider myself, in a sense, a slow starter because, as I said earlier, I didn't know how to navigate this stuff. And when I was going through college, I wasn't getting straight A's, and it was getting tough. But, you know, you just keep going, and before you know it, I've been able to survive and swim as well as anybody. And today, as Secretary Cardona can tell you, there are about, 17, 18 of us who are members of the president's cabinet. And it is the most diverse cabinet in the history of the country. And so while we may have been the first in our families to get a college degree, we were able to swim through this stuff even though we didn't know how to do it. So I would tell all of you who may not think you know everything or aren't as good or know as much as the next person over there, don't let that worry you. If you're determined, you will get there. And take Secretary Cardona, take me as an example of what you can get to do if you just do it. The other thing I would tell you is we're doing some great things at the Department of Health and Human Services on mental health services. And I have to tell you that we're breaking barriers because we're doing things differently. We're, like the fact that the Department of Health and Human Services is working with the Department of Education to have Medicaid, which is health care, Medicaid dollars go into the school directly, not into a health clinic, because we know that so many students need help, behavioral health help, physical health issues, substance use sometimes. Why wait till that student finds a way to get to that clinic when they're in school 5 days a week? And so we're going to break those barriers because we know that's where we can connect with folks a lot sooner. And that comes because when I was going to school, we didn't have access to those kinds of things. Why not have the school be the hub for so many more things than just education?
Thank you. You know, and as we're starting to wrap here, I just want to reflect, and then Secretary Becerra could help close us out with some wrapping up, some closing thoughts. I just want to reflect on what you said. You know, both you and I were first-gen college students. We both had to navigate a system that was kind of foreign to us. And while we maybe didn't fit the mold and had to work twice as hard to navigate that system, we did it bilingually and biculturally. And oftentimes, you know, for students that have to navigate the system, they're trying to assimilate and connect. I think for both of us, that has been a superpower that we've been able to use in our career. So to those who are navigating the system, and in particular our youth who are feeling a little bit like they can't navigate the system or it's not designed for them, not only can you navigate the system, you can crush the system, you could run the system. And what you might see as something that makes you different is, in fact, what makes you unique and is a superpower. I always said being bilingual and bicultural is a superpower. Let's never forget that, and let's lift up the fact that if you could code switch and culture switch, you're able to navigate in more spaces. You're able to be successful. So I don't want that to get lost in our stories. He's leading Health and Human Services. I'm leading education. We're both advising the President of the United States. And I think our biculturalism and our ability to navigate that system the way we did is part of the reason why we're sitting in those chairs. So shout out to you because you've served as a mentor to me and someone that helped me realize you can do it if you put your mind to it and embrace who you are. So just shout out to you there. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as we close this, Javier, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking moving forward?
So as I look back, I mean, my parents, my dad got to the 6th grade, and my mom didn't come to this country till she married my father when she was about 18 and came from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. And the interesting thing is that as little as they had, we never went without. We never got the Levi's jeans and the nice sneakers and that kind of stuff, but we never went without. And what's interesting is you take that everywhere you go. At least I take that everywhere I go. It informs everything I do. And so when COVID hit, we made sure that we didn't just let folks who knew how to navigate the system get the vaccine. We went to communities and looked for folks that often got left behind, because we knew that if they knew about this vaccine and how much potential it had to save lives, that they would want it, especially if it was free and they didn't have to pay a whole lot of money that they couldn't afford. And so we were able to remove all the disparities that you typically see happen where white, more affluent communities end up acquiring and getting access first, which is what I saw when I got into office in March of 2021 as a secretary. By then, you were already starting to see the disparities. About 2/3 of white adult Americans had gotten their first shot of the vaccine in 2021 when we were in the heat of the COVID pandemic. Less than 50% of Black and Latinos had gotten their first vaccine. But by the time we finished the year, 90% of white adults had gotten their at least one vaccine. 90% of Black adults had gotten their vaccine. 90% of Latinos had gotten their vaccine as adults. 90% of Asian Americans, 90% of Native Americans. We had erased the disparity, not because it was accidental, not because we were lucky. We worked hard. We went where folks were, and when we told them what we had and that they could benefit, they connected. And I hope that you all will help us connect, because now we have a program called 988. I hope all of you have heard of 988. It's like 911 for folks who are going through mental health challenges, substance use challenges, and need some help. and want to turn to someplace other than go the wrong direction. We need young folks because a lot of young folks are calling in. Actually, they're texting and chatting. We set up text and chat because too many of you don't like to use a phone. You'd rather text and chat. So we set up text, chat, and phone call. And about 8 million people, since we set it up about 18 months ago, have called, texted, and chat saying, I need help. But we need young folks to be answering the call, responding to the text, because we see that the connection gets made fastest that way and is more intense. And so I would urge you, and certainly Cherie, Aryanna, you already communicating. What a beautiful thing to have you be the person that helps connect that young person who thinks, what am I doing here? And makes one last ditch attempt and then finds you. And then says, you know what? Maybe there's hope. So that's what we hope to do. And that occurs because when you go through those experiences, a young person not having a lot, you reach out to folks who can help you reach others who haven't had a lot. So I'm inspired by this. I'm looking forward to that task force that Secretary Cardona is going to establish, and Cherie, you and Aryanna are going to be working on. And let's see where we go from there, because we have a lot to do to get young folks more involved in what goes on every day in this great country.
Let's give Secretary Becerra a round of applause. And let's also give our amazing panelists, Cherie and Aryanna, a round of applause. And I'll just close by saying, we get inspired by you. We know you're working hard, but inspiration is not enough. We need action, and we need to get to work. So I'm committed to making sure that we're connected in a way that's intentional. I think what happens sometimes is we have these great summits and everyone feels good and they go back and then it's still disconnected. We need to be connected. We need to be connected. There are a lot of issues that we need to work on together, where we need you to push us, drive us, tell us where we're hitting the mark, where we're not hitting the mark. And I commit to making sure that we establish that today. I know we're going to get together in about 6 months, so I want to see where we are. I expect results, intentionality, and we must be unapologetic about the issues that are facing our youth today. Thank you for lending your voice and your leadership. Thank you to the panelists, Secretary Becerra. We're committed. We're all in. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.